Hello and welcome to this very unstable video today. I'm attempting to show you my entire collection of classic literature, and for some reason I thought it was a good idea to pile them all on the couch next to me. So I'm very scared to move because if I do, they will just all fall on me and I will probably die because that's some heavy stacks right here. I think let's get started so this doesn't take too long. So some of these I have absolutely adored and some of these I haven't even read yet and I have no idea where they've come from because I did not buy them. But yeah, still, I really want to read all of them in the near future. And also, they are not in any particular order. I just took them off the shelves and piled them on here. So I tried to keep authors together, but I probably did not succeed at that. So let's just get started from the top. The first book on this pile is a very ugly German edition of The Catcher in the Rye by J.D. Salinger. And also I haven't bought this. I think my brother bought this and I'm just storing it in my shelf. But I have this weird obsession that any book that is written in English, I will also read in English. Because if I speak and can read the language, I don't see really the point of going through the translation process. Because I'm always having this weird feeling like, what if the author chose a different word or a different phrasing and now I understand it differently and it's not the exact words the author has put down. It's kind of a weird habit of mine, so I probably will not read this edition, although it's very soft and worn in. It's definitely used, but yeah, I have this problem and you will see it happening again. Next up, the same thing. It's Lord of the Flies by William Golding. As you can see, another German edition. This is an edition by the publisher called Fisher, which I actually love. I think they usually make fantastic editions. But yeah, again, I have not read this and I will probably not read it in this edition, but in the English original. Then the first classic I have actually read, and this is The Old Man and Sea by Ernest Hemingway. And I basically read it because it's the favorite book of my mother. Basically what the title says, it's about a man and the sea and the solitude in it. The premise is kind of similar to Moby Dick because he's also obsessed with catching this one fish, but it's so much shorter and so much more digestible, and I have actually read this compared to Moby Dick, as you will see coming up. Then I have this huge stack of translated Hemingway. Again, the old problem, I will not read those editions, although I think they're pretty cute and matching. First of all, we have A Movable Feast, then we have The Sun Also Rises, then we have The Snow of Kilimanjaro, and another German edition of The Old Man and the Sea. And they all look so beautiful together and so matching, and it's a shame that I will buy other editions of them. Or read them on the Kindle at least. I hate it to buy the same book twice because I don't like the edition. I feel always so shallow doing that, but I think it adds a lot to the reading experience when it comes to not only the look of the cover, but also how the book feels in your hand, how the font size is, the margins between the lines. I think that contributes so much to how much you like the book because it's just some things just make reading easier and harder, and I love these editions, but yeah, probably get some others. More Hemingway. I have the complete short stories of Ernest Hemingway, and this is a thick boy. This is a chunk, but it just feels so soft and it's just so floppy, so it makes it really nice to go through there. I'm not even close to finishing this. I'm reading one short story every 2 years, but I think this is kind of the way to read collections, I never planned on reading this front to back in one sitting. That's just absurd to do. Every time I'm craving some Hemingway, I just go back to this and I just know there's so much more to come. I'm really grateful to have this book, and listen to this. So floppy. Let's start now this pile because this is looking very, very dangerous. This is the only Kafka I own. This is Letters to Milena. I don't like the sizing of it. It's so thin, but then why is it so big? Why not make it smaller and a bit thicker so it lays more nicely in the hand? Also the sort of book that you don't read from front to back. This is just something I go back to when I'm looking for a bit of slice of life and some poetic letters, which Kafka is pretty good at. Then we have the German edition of The Stranger by Albert Camus. And when it comes to non-English and non-German writers, then I go for the German translation. Because then again, if I'm reading, for example, a Japanese author, and as a German, I'm reading the English translation, it's just too much. I've read this book going into it, and I was more looking to read a book and not study and analyze it. But I do think that if you go read The Stranger, you have to kind of be open to that, because it is kind of dealing with like philosophical ideas, and it's like one of like the biggest examples of existentialism, for example. So if you're into philosophy, if you are into studying those topics and like literature of the sort, then I would definitely recommend this. If you're just there to read cool stories and just are there for the reading experience, then I don't know if that's the best fit, but I definitely liked this. I do think I would have liked it more if I would have gone into it with a different mindset. Then we have another book that I love to finally really read, but this is just not it. It's just super big, but then not as thick. This is Paradise Lost by John Milton, like one of the biggest pieces of literature when it comes to like the biblical story. I think alongside with like Dante's Divine Comedy, I think this is up there. I see so many quotes and references to this piece of literature, and I really want to read it, and I want to read in English, but the English is so old and so hard to understand. Every 4 lines I'm going to a website that's kind of explaining and analyzing the text, which I think you have to do either way for this sort of book. It just feels like a textbook in my hand. It just does not feel like a novel. I mean, it's not a novel, it's an epic poem, but still, it just feels like I'm studying for my biology class. And I hate that. I really only bought this because it's illustrated by William Blake, and I absolutely adore William Blake and his work and his drawings. They're so beautiful. But maybe for the purpose of reading, I will get me another copy. Oh, then we actually come to 2 books I'm currently reading, and the first one is Giovanni's Room by James Baldwin. I've picked this up because Jack Atwood is always raving about James Baldwin, and especially this book. And first of all, I love this editions. It's those modern classics by Penguin. I'm 52 pages in, and I like it, but I don't think I've gotten to like the essence of the story yet. It's still like setting up and things. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to keep reading this. And then we come to one of the biggest missions in my life, and that is reading Dante's Divine Comedy. This is a chunk of a book, but it's also absolutely stunning. This is the German edition, because obviously Dante's written it in Italian, so there's no point in getting an English one. And also this is by the publisher called Nicole, and they make this beautiful cloth-bound books with like the metallic details, and they're so pretty. And this one is illustrated by Gustave Doré, which is also one of my favorite artists. It's just so beautiful. I think he's also made illustrations for Paradise Lost and also the Bible, so he's really into those religious works. I'm like halfway through Inferno right now, and I do plan on making a whole video on this. So I'm not going to talk about this, but this I think will be one of the biggest achievements of my life when I finish this one. Oh, let's talk about cloth-bound classics by Penguin. First off, we have The Picture of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde. This one's, I think, one of the classics that my age group has read the most, because it's had such a hype with the whole dark academia thing, and it is a fantastic book, and I really recommend it to everyone. I've had this weird thing reading this book that I thought maybe I will invent a new annotation system, and instead of putting tabs in it, I just mark it like the edges of the page. But this is so not worth it. I don't know if you can even see that. It's really hard to see, but it's so hard to find. You literally spend like 5 minutes finding the exact page you have marked. So I don't recommend this at all, and it's really hard to go back to it through the quotes, which I do a lot with my books. So yeah, recommend the book, not the annotation system. Then we have the only Jane Austen novel I've ever read, and this is Pride and Prejudice. Not my favorite cloth-bound classic. It's such a muddy yellow. It's not my favorite color in the world. I also think I look quite sick holding it. I just look like a Victorian child dying of malnourishment. And to be honest, I also did not love the book. I read this review at some point that Pride and Prejudice is just rich people going to each other's houses with a cute love story, and it's literally that. I love the movie with Keira Knightley, but you know, the book, not so much. And then I think the last cloth-bound classic I own is also the only Charles Dickens I have ever read, and this is A Tale of Two Cities. God, I did the same annotation thing with like marking the pages. No idea what got over me at that point in my life. This felt chewy. It's like, when you're chewing something and it feels like it's getting more in your mouth and you like cannot swallow it down. It's like this is what it feels like reading this book. But if you get through like the middle of the book and reach the end, I think it was so worth it. And to be honest, Sidney Carton is a character that is stuck with me. I love this man to death. I think the ending makes this book worth it, like this chunk. But it also put me off reading more Charles Dickens. I really want to read Great Expectations, for example, but just knowing this is how he writes, I'm like, maybe there are other authors who are more suitable for me. But please let me know if it's worth it to read his other works. Then we have one of the most beautiful editions I will ever own, and this is Moby Dick by Herman Melville. Look at this. I bought this at the British Museum in London. I think I went there with my class in 2017, so it's quite a while, and I still haven't read it. But it has those beautiful sprayed edges. It has such a pretty design. It's kind of like metallic and stuff, and it just looks so pretty. But the things I've heard about this book, it's also kind of chewy, like what I mentioned with A Tale of Two Cities and like Charles Dickens writing. I've heard that it's kind of hard to get through. But if you're reading a book this pretty, I think I will have to conquer it at some point. I have to conquer my fear of reading hard, long books. Like design on the back. What is this? It is so beautiful. Jesus, I will have to just judge the book by its cover, I think. I think that's what we do in these kind of situations. Oh, and then we go to another kind of awkward edition, and this is A Study in Scarlet by Arthur Conan Doyle. I'm a sucker for BBC's Sherlock. It's like such a comfort show for me, and I thought at that point, why not just get into the original works? And I've bought this, and I've never read it, and I don't think I ever will read this. Maybe I will do that, but not right now. Yeah, similar to the last one, make it smaller and a bit thicker, please. Jesus, this is Camilla by Sheridan Le Fanu. Not sure how to pronounce the name, but this is like the original vampire story even before Dracula. So pretty short, and I think I will read this maybe in October. I think October is always the time to read vampire stories. So I'm like keeping this for spooky time because I cannot even think about reading the story in like June. So there will be time. Then one of my favorite books of all time, and this is of course The Little Prince by Antoine de Saint-Exupéry. This is a German edition. I think I've read it in English and in German, and I've owned a couple of different editions that are much more beautiful than this one, but I've gifted them. Every person I really like, I gift this book to, and it's such a blast because every time I read it before I gift them, because it's also just an excuse to read it again. The Little Prince is like one of those books that will just change your life a little bit. And I'm not saying that about a lot of books, but The Little Prince just knocks it out of the park every time. And another book that kind of changed me, and this was a gift from my father because he loves this author, and this is 100 Years of Solitude by Gabriel Garcia Marquez. A German edition, which is kind of awkward looking, to be honest. I don't know, it's just really white with this little painting on it, but I kind of like it. And it's old and worn down, but it feels soft and nice, and it's so dirty. I don't even know what happened to this book, but it's so dirty and ugly now. But this is kind of like, the charm of reading and using the books you own. And this is, magical realism. He's like the grandfather of that genre, and it is absolutely beautiful. The first line of this book just hooks you, but also like 20 people in this book have the same exact name, so I always had like this graphic of like a family tree while reading this book because it's kind of hard at some point. But yeah, it's so worth it getting through like the last like 2 or 3 pages. What was that? I just sat in silence for like 2 hours to kind of comprehend that. It was really life-changing to me, and I really wanted to read it again. And also I want to read his whole bibliography, but I'm kind of scared. I don't know, when I discover an author that I just love so much, I'm really scared to continue other works of that author because I feel like maybe they won't deliver, or maybe I will lose the love for this author, and I just want to keep cherishing it. So yeah, but soon I will have to read other books by him. Next up, we go into Russian literature. This is Tolstoy's Anna Karenina, and this is a chunk. I do think this is actually a German edition. Wow. So this will be the book I will read eventually. Tolstoy is one of these authors that I'm really looking forward to reading, and I hope that I will enjoy them. Also a factor of why I haven't read them yet, because I'm kind of just scared that I won't like them, but because I've loved Dostoevsky so much. Maybe I have a thing for Russian literature. And I probably will watch the movie first. I mean, there is a lot of movie adaptations, but some sort of adaptations to kind of have a bit of a lighter start into it, because I actually at this point I have no idea what the story is about. Next up is this brick of a book, also Tolstoy. This is War and Peace, and this is an English edition. I have not bought this. I don't know why I have it, but yeah, the other Tolstoy that I want to read. Reading this must feel like winning Olympic gold. I don't know, this it's described as also being hard to read. I've heard that there are so many long passages where it's like basically like Wikipedia just telling you about the history at some point. If I will eventually read it, it will take a long time, but I want to do this at some point, of course. And then the same Oxford edition, I have Crime and Punishment by Dostoevsky. Also not mine. I think my brother bought it maybe, but I definitely don't think he's read it in English, so that just makes no sense. But I own it and it looks kind of pretty. I really like this read. But yeah, let's just quickly go to the next, because this is the German edition I have of this. Way better. I love these Dostoevsky editions. First of all, they're by the publisher called Fischer, which I've already talked about, and they have every book of his freshly translated. And every book has an accent color, so the name on the spine is in that color and just a pretty picture. And as you can see, all of these books, they have just one color in one picture, and they just look so nice next to each other, and it makes me really motivated to read all of his books so I can have them all. So yeah, this is my German copy of Crime and Punishment, which I have not read. This is the next one on my list by Dostoevsky. Then I have The Gambler, again, very pretty editions. This one I have read and I have absolutely loved. Basically, I only read this because this was kind of the last really short book in his bibliography. So I kind of just read this before going on to the big books. It was a huge surprise for me because I loved this. I went through the emotions of being addicted to gambling while reading this. I've never even been in a casino, you know, but now I know how it feels like, because he's described it so well. Like the obsession and the addiction and like the feeling you have while gambling. And yeah, it's a very good story, very punchy and not that long. And then the last novel of Dostoevsky is Notes from Underground. This is a philosophical feast. For everyone who's into that, like if you are into philosophy, then go read this book, because you will probably get hard on just reading the first few pages. This is basically about a man who's just living in a room and telling you about his thoughts of the world. And he's very nihilistic, he's very arrogant, and he has all those very interesting thoughts. But most of the time, he's completely alone. He doesn't really have anyone in his life that kind of gives him feedback about his thoughts and if they're correct or not or whatever. But yeah, this is so fun, like getting into his head, and he speaks to the reader directly. And I think this is also worth a second and third read. Maybe you read this first, then kind of study the philosophy behind it, then go back to it and you will understand it differently. And yeah, this is so fun. There's also this podcast called Philosophize This, and he's made episodes on a lot of Dostoevsky books. Also this one. Listen to that beforehand. There will be slight spoilers in it, but it kind of helps you put the philosophy in the book into perspective. Then we have the only Virginia Woolf book that I own, and this is called The Waves. And to be honest, I completely judged the book by its cover, because I only bought it because I thought this was so pretty. And I thought when buying it, those were waves on the cover, but it's actually like a bed sheet. And I have no idea what this is about. I think I read the first page when I first bought it, but then I never continued. I don't know why. And I'm not currently that interested in reading Virginia Woolf, although I've heard so many great things about her. But I don't know. I'm just really gravitating to other authors right now. So, but this is on my list and I will at some point read Virginia Woolf. Then a much loved classic and one of my favorites, and this is 1984 by George Orwell, of course. And I love the edition. It's just so beautiful. It's like the perfect size of a book. I don't have to tell you about this book. It's just fantastic. I would recommend anyone and everyone to go read this. Yeah, fantastic. And I'm currently noticing that I have no idea where my copy of Animal Farm by George Orwell is. So I'll briefly talk about this. I have it somewhere. But Animal Farm is such a fantastic novella. It's super short, but super good. It is just chef's kiss. I loved it so much. It's basically satire on the Russian Revolution. So basically the topic of a revolution overthrowing a regime just so it gets replaced by an equally or even more terrible regime. If you know this information, it's quite clear what will happen in the novella, but I think it just adds to it because you're kind of looking forward for it to happen. And the last sentence of the book blew me away. I think it was just so punchy and on point because it's so short, but it's perfect. And everyone who is not into classic or who wants to get into it, I would recommend Animal Farm to you. And then we have my little stack of Little Penguin classics. First is Oscar Wilde's Only Dull People Are Brilliant at Breakfast. And this is really just a collection of things he has said, but some of them are very funny and on point. Some of them are not relatable at all. It's just so short. And if you love The Picture of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde, then I would recommend just giving this one a try. Then we have White Nights by Dostoevsky, which I have read years ago. This is like the first thing I've read by him, but then it kind of got viral again because I think Jack Edwards recommended it, so it's kind of popular right now. A beautiful little story about love and unrequited love and just longing and suffering and all the good things. Then we have Letters to a Young Poet by Rainer Maria Rilke. This is a German author. I have no idea why I've read it in English. I think I just wanted to get another one of these little editions. Yeah, very good, fantastic book. I've also gifted this to a couple of people now. Great advice on life. And then I have A Terrible Beauty is Born by W.B. Yeats, I think he's pronounced that way. I have even no idea what this is, if this is a novella or a collection of things. No clue. I just bought it on an impulse at some point, but you know, it's always good to have a short book lying around. Then we have The Prophet by Khalil Gibran. I have a German edition, and this is well loved by me. Also a gift from my dad, so it means a lot to me, and I just love the content of this book. It's basically just someone very wise giving you advice on all sorts of things in life. So if you just need, you know, some guidance in your life or some motivational words, go get this book. Khalil Gibran is just a wizard when it comes to words and life advice. Next up, more Hemingway. This is A Farewell to Arms, the English edition, which I've read and loved. I am not even sure if I finished this book. I might have still 100 pages left, but completely forgot about this. This could be totally possible because I just noticed that I stopped annotating. God, I'm on page 226, so about like 40 pages left in this book. I have no clue how that happened, but I'm not even sure if I can continue. I have to start all over. So yeah, but I love the first 200 pages. So yeah, a very good book. Maybe I should finish it. Maybe. Then we have Arthur Conan Doyle again, but this time the same book, but in German. Maybe I just bought this because I thought maybe I read it in my language. But yeah, hasn't happened yet. Might happen. Not that probable though. Then we have another edition of The Stranger by Albert Camus, which is way prettier, and this is also the one I have read. It's just simple, minimalistic, and just looks dope. Then we have the two Agatha Christie books I own. Super cute editions. I love both of them. They just look very good together. This is the vibe. First one is Murder on the Orient Express, and this is the one I've actually read. I think that it was cool, but I didn't necessarily love it, and it also didn't, you know, have me craving for more. So the other one I have, And Then We Were None, and also one of her most popular works, I have not read. I'm not even sure if I will. Just not that interesting. Then we have Brave New World by Aldous Huxley, which I've absolutely loved. And I have this in this weird like school edition. I might have actually stolen it from my school because I think we were reading a bit off the book. It's just mandatory reading when it comes to dystopian classics. So this in 1984 is just, you have to read it. And it's so good. I enjoyed it so much. Yeah, fantastic book. Then F. Scott Fitzgerald's The Great Gatsby in the Penguin English Library edition. I really like this. I went back to tabbing, as you can see. Love these editions, by the way. They just feel so smooth and papery-ish. I just don't love the orange lining on the spine, which every one of these books has. But yeah, the book, fine. I enjoyed it. I see this book on so many greatest books of all time lists, and it's usually on top as like place one, which for me is absolutely insane because there's so many other books that for me are so much better than this one. So I kind of get, yes, it's a good book. Is it the greatest book of all time? No. Is it even in the top 10? I don't think so. Kind of conflicted feelings about it because I liked it, but then again, not as much as other people. And then I have Dracula by Bram Stoker, one of the most popular vampire stories of all time. Have I read it? No. I've bought this alongside Frankenstein a couple of years ago because I wanted to have some gothic, dark stories for October and like Halloween and that time. And I ended up reading Frankenstein, which is phenomenal. I've loved it so much, but it took some time to go through, and then it was kind of November and I was not in the mood for spooky anymore. Frankenstein, absolutely glorious, fantastic. It made me cry. And when I read this book, I realized before I had no clue what this was even about. I just thought it was about a dude who created a monster, and the monster is just really bad, but it's not at all that. It's called Frankenstein's monster, but it's not. It's just a creature who is kind of born or created and just wants some peace in his life. And Victor Frankenstein's just does not grant him that. And it's so emotional and heartfelt seeing the monster come to consciousness and see human beings loving each other and caring for each other, and he realizes he's so alone in this world because there's only one of him. And reading this just made me bawl my eyes out. I don't know, it just really moved me and I did not expect that from a monster story, you know? And this were all the books on my stack. And I'm kind of confused because I think there are some other classics I have or I own or I've read I couldn't find anymore. Hi, quick interruption from the edit because I've completely forgot to talk about my Shakespeare collection. I just forgot them on my desk while collecting all of my books. So these are all the Shakespeares I have, and most of them I've actually read. And what I like about these editions, they're called the Pelican Shakespeare, is that they're color-coded. So yellow is the sonnets, then you have black for the tragedies, and then you have this baby blue for the comedies. And I just really like this, and they all have their own little illustration on the cover and then also on the spine, so it's like really fitting and cute. They don't have that much information on the text or like analysis or explanations. They have footnotes, of course, but because every time I read Shakespeare I usually go to like spot notes anyway or like read explanations and analysis, so I don't really care about these. I just really love that they fit together. So the first one I have is obviously Romeo and Juliet. This is the first Shakespeare I have read. I have dog-eared so much of this book. Then the next one is Macbeth. I think this is one of the most recent I've read. I really enjoyed this book. Also read the illustration there. Then I have Julius Caesar. This is my favorite Shakespeare so far. I loved it so much. It has such good dialogues and less speeches and monologues and fantastically written. Like, I will definitely read this again, and to this day it's still my absolute favorite Shakespeare. Next up is a comedy called The Tempest. I think this was like story-wise okay for me. I didn't dislike or liked it in particular, but this has some banger quotes. If you've read the Shadow Me series, for example, you will be aware of one of the quotes, and this is "Hell is empty and all the devils are here." I just love this quote. Just the thought of Shadow referencing Shakespeare I think is absurd to begin with, and you will find a lot of quotes in here that you will see referenced all across pop culture, so definitely worth a read. And then the last one I haven't actually read. I think years ago when I wasn't into classic literature that much, I knew Romeo and Juliet, Macbeth, Hamlet, and A Midsummer Night's Dream. I think those were the only ones I could name. I'm really looking forward to read that. I think it will be very magical and whimsical and mystical, and what couldn't you love about that? And then of course the sonnets with this beautiful yellow cover, and similar to like most collections, I just go to it whenever I'm in the mood for it. I've read a couple of these, but not many, but I'm not mad at all. My favorite is number 29, and you know what? I'm gonna read it to you because it's just so beautiful. When in disgrace with fortune and men's eyes, I all alone beweep my outcast state, and trouble deaf heaven with my bootless cries, and look upon myself and curse my fate, wishing me like to one more rich in hope, featured like him with friends possessed, desiring this man's art and that man's scope, with what I most enjoy contented least. Yet in these thoughts myself almost despising, happily I think on thee, and then my state, like to the lark at break of day arising, from sullen earth, sings hymns at heaven's gate. For thy sweet love remembered such wealth brings, that then I scorn to change my state with kings. How can someone write this? And this was 500 years ago and it still hitting the spot. Luckily, I will keep this on my shelf far away from me, so I have a full lifetime of exploring his sonnets. This basically concludes my whole classic literature collection. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you next week. Bye!